I'm hoping this is us at Silverstone. Ready? Cool. Hello and welcome to On Track GP. We have a whole sprint again to get through, don't we?
Same time.
Joining me today is Sam. Welcome back. It's been a while since we saw each other.
Yeah, it has been. Yeah, I wasn't here for much of Canada, so.
And I wasn't here for Canada. Yeah. So here we are. Here we are in Austria. We had the sprint this morning. We were discussing before we started the show. What is the point of having a pre-sprint before a sprint?
So yeah, that was the shootout. So that's the qualifying for this sprint. So yeah, it's basically like they've separated the days of the Grand Prix, so like Friday and Sunday related, but then the Saturday is just like a completely separate day on its own, really. Like it's just a sprint day. So we had the qualifying this morning, and now we're going to get the sprint in a little over 10 minutes.
Do you prefer the old format of a sprint, where it was kind of like it actually affected the race on the Sunday?
I'm going to be honest, no. I feel like I'm always keen that qualifying sort of represents the actual grid, because I feel like that's just the way it's been. That's the best way to do it as well. So if they're going to have sprints, I would prefer they did it this way round, and the sprints are sort of its own little event kind of thing.
But all in all, would you rather just see the back of sprints?
Yeah, I think I'm not a huge fan of them. I think I'd much rather have drivers who've had like 3 practice sessions who really understand the car, the track, especially in conditions like today where it's quite wet, so they've had a lot of different running. And then you have the race on Sunday, which is like been built up to properly. I understand why F1 do it. Like they obviously want to get fans in on every day of the Grand Prix. Like typically Friday's the least attended day, which makes sense because you've only got 2 practice sessions. But with this, you've got a bit of racing involved. So I understand why they do it. I'm glad it's not a thing that happens every race, but I think 6 in a season's not too bad considering there's like 20 odd races. So
I mean, the drivers absolutely hate it.
Yeah,
I hate it.
Yeah, I think there's. Has any driver come out and said it's a good thing? Yeah,
no.
I think Lewis Hamilton said this morning it was pointless. So like, I mean, whether he'd say that if he qualified on pole and not P18 as he did, but
I think it's just not as relevant. It doesn't really.
And I think Verstappen, he qualifies on pole all the time, and he said it's irrelevant. I think it's the fact that the maximum you can do is get 8 points. And I think the problem with sprint is the risk versus reward is so much towards the risk, because you could crash in this race really badly.
Your whole weekend's done.
Yeah, your engineers can't fix it for tomorrow, whereas the maximum point you can get is 8. And for someone like Verstappen, who's, I don't know how many points, in the several hundred already, like that's just a little bit more added onto it. So it's not a huge amount. I think they need to sort of work out how to fix that, really. Find
a happy medium. All right, well, let's look at what happened this morning in that sprint shootout in SQ1. It was a bit of a tricky session. It was a little bit damp. We have got rain this afternoon, and there was rain this morning. We had a spin from Zhou Guanyu. Carlos Sainz, he returned to the pits early doors, an expected brake-by-wire failure. That got fixed, though, pretty quickly. And then he did well, didn't he, when he came back out?
Like, I think like 3 or 4 minutes to go, we were looking in Sainz's garage. His car was nowhere near being fixed. And then he got out, and the one time lap he did was really quick. So I think that's actually really impressive by Sainz to not have any time to get used to the track and just sort of put in a really good lap like that. I think he should have a bit of praise for that.
Yeah, I think he thought that he was going to get kind of like one practice when he got back out, but they were like, no, this is it, and then he just absolutely floored it.
Around, the team wanted him to do a warm-up, and he was like, no, I've got to go for it, kind of thing, and he did, fair enough, and
he did.
Worked for him.
He did really, really well. Another thing that we've spoken about so far this weekend is track limits. Of course, we saw Sergio Perez have an abysmal time keeping within the lines, 3 strikes, and you were essentially out yesterday. We will talk more about that. But again, there was a little bit of improvement during the session of people staying within the lines. But again, we did see several times deleted.
Yeah, and I think the difference between today and yesterday is the track's a bit wetter now, so drivers are going to be less keen to use all of the track. Like, it's that turn 10 entrance where they're all having a bit of a problem, where you come in really quickly and you've got to try and really get it round, and you don't want to lose any speed because you go straight into the pit lane straight then. But I think, like I said, today the track's just a little bit wetter, so yes, there's the punishment of you might get your lap deleted, but there's a bigger punishment that you could spin out. So I think the drivers have all been just a little bit more careful.
Take more caution when you get to turn 10.
We don't need to go absolutely barreling through there.
I just wanted to get your opinion, because obviously, as I mentioned to you before we started, this turn, it clearly has to be a problem. And why do they not do something to, in a way, help the drivers? Because when you're travelling at such speed, especially going around into that turn, obviously you can't necessarily see the lines specifically, which sounds ridiculous to say, but when you're travelling at that speed, that it is quite difficult to manage the car, the speed you're going at, and the lines. Why is there not something there to try and aid the drivers?
I think that's a fair point, but if I'm the stewards, I'm going to turn around and say, well, these all drivers managed to do it. Like I think it is quite hard to build in something like, because what do? Do you either put gravel there, which causes a lot of like, that's not an easy job to do, like to replace it. If you put a wall there, it's incredibly dangerous. Like the drivers wouldn't like that. And I think the stewards can just turn around and say, well, you can stay in the lines, you just go a little bit, don't go as quick, or you do like Verstappen or someone did, like go quick but stay in the line. So like I think it's just a track that has a lot of tight corners, and just sort of this topic gets raised every time we go to Austria, but it's just one of the characteristics of the track, and like you've got to stay within the lines to complete a lap, and I think that's probably fair.
Yeah, fair enough. It is the track. It is what it is. Every track is different, as we are seeing more and more. Piastri, today's, I guess, major talking point is the fact that he was impeded by Charles Leclerc. 3-place deduction, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think I can't remember another season like this where we've had a load of impeding like situations where,
especially in the last few weeks, there's been a lot going on.
It's definitely happened a lot. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if the team should do a job. This example in particular was, I mean, Ferrari got pretty much all the blame from the stewards. They said that
Ferrari do get the blame a lot, to be fair.
It's not surprising. It literally happened in Monaco like a few weeks ago. They did it before. You would have thought they'd learned, but they just didn't warn Leclerc that he was there. And like, I think again, the nature of this circuit is the pit lane is sort of right in the racing line coming towards it. So Leclerc was just coming in. Piastri happened to be there. Like if Leclerc knew, he could probably put a bit more speed to go into the pit lane. But yeah, I think it was a slam dunk penalty. I mean, it took them a long time. It took like an hour and a half for them to come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
But I think they're just covering all their bases. Yeah, I think it's a fair penalty.
So whose fault is that then? Would we say strategists?
I think it's the team's fault. Yeah, the team, like, if you think you're in Leclerc's situation, he's got no idea who's behind him unless they're literally in his rearview mirror. And like, but the team have all this track data. They can see where every other driver is on the grid. So it's their job to tell Leclerc, Piastri's coming on a quick lap, get out of the way, kind of thing. So like, yeah, even the stewards were like, this was pretty much entirely the team's fault, but the rule was broken, so that means you get the standard penalty of 3 places down the grid.
Well, it wasn't a terrible sprint for Leclerc or Sainz, really. I mean, Sainz, obviously, we mentioned he set the fastest lap time. Leclerc, he did just scrape through because everyone had improved through that session. It was by 0.001 he scraped through. Yeah. Other major talking point was Lewis Hamilton. He was knocked out in SQ1.
So yeah, I was talking about the team with Ferrari. I think this is a similar thing with Mercedes. Like they just didn't get him out in the right time. He was trying to do quick laps, and he was stuck in a load of traffic. And the Austria circuit is very, very short. So like, you do sort of get clumps up of lots of drivers together. That just happens. And I think part of the qualifying challenge is for the team to get you out in the prime area so you can get a quick lap in. And that just didn't happen for Hamilton. He found himself stuck, and then he went out. Like that's just the way
I mean, he didn't care.
Yeah, I mean, he's not too fast. I think he qualified much better yesterday. I think if you asked him which session would you rather qualify well for, he would have said the race 100%.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, the sprint isn't worth a load, especially for someone like Hamilton. Like the Mercedes car doesn't look that great here, so I think he was probably anticipating he's not going to be challenging for the top tier of points, which at the end of the day is just 8, so it's not like a huge amount.
Yeah, it's not much to miss out on. And finally in SQ1, George Russell, he was complaining of a suspected hydraulic issue after that session, but he still managed to get through at that point. So the people that went out in that was Zhou Guanyu, Piastri, Hamilton, Bottas and Logan Sargent. Moving on to SQ2, the mechanics were working on George Russell's car to try and get him out in time to set a lap, but they just couldn't do it, could they?
Yeah, it was too big a problem. I think Russell was lucky that he managed to set a lap before this issue happened. But yeah, it was the thing about sprint shootout is like the timings are ridiculously short. So like, which sort of makes it more impressive that Sainz's team was able to do that. But the Sainz problem was much easier fixed than Russell's was. His like, you need like a whole replacement to the front of his car. So like, that just wasn't going to happen. So I think they just sort of, I think halfway through the session, like we as the media got a message from Mercedes saying he's not coming back out. Like we've got work to do, kind of thing. So I think it's probably better for them to let their mechanics take their time rather than like trying to rush it and then have problems later.
And also, in all honesty, it's not the end of the world, as we said today. A sprint, when you've only got 8 points up for grabs, it's pretty irrelevant. The focus is really on tomorrow. Carlos Sainz in SQ2, he set the second fastest lap time. He looks to be the main competitor to Red Bull today. We've seen an improvement, haven't we, in the Ferraris?
Really he's been really good this weekend. I think he didn't qualify ahead of Leclerc yesterday, but I think he sort of kept speed with him, and like, I think Sainz has sort of come into his own really. Like the Ferrari does look vaguely quick. Like you said, I think them and maybe the McLaren of Lando Norris has looked really good. And I think it's still Red Bull's race to lose kind of thing. But like, I think there should be some interesting battles. I mean, we've got Norris P3 and then Hulkenberg P4. Like, no one would have predicted that really going into this weekend. So,
we would not have predicted that at all. Not at all. Both Haas drivers, they got through to SQ3 today. Of course, no Mercedes in that. Albon and Hulkenberg, they set exact times. Hulkenberg got through in 10th, though, as he set the time first. A little bit harsh on Alex Albon?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite unusual that drivers do. Yeah, I think the argument there is that the track gets quicker the later it goes. So, like, I mean, it's happened before. Like, it's happened for more. I think there was one race ages ago. I can't remember the year. Sorry, people might correct me, but I think there were 3 people who could have got pole, but they all got the exact same time. The person who did it first.
Mad to get the exact same time as someone else.
You think how like precise the time goes down to, and they still got exactly the same time. But I think that's just the way it goes. I mean, what are you going to do?
And we are gearing up, by the way, for this sprint. Also, the people that went out in SQ2 was Albon, Gasly, Tsunoda, De Vries and George Russell. So we move on to SQ3. There was a puff of smoke that came out of Verstappen's car as he sat in the pit, but he continued with no issues.
I think that's just...
Something magical in the car going on.
It's just something really exciting. Like
we just need to make it exciting because it's getting predictable now about the Red Bulls. I did say though that I have a feeling that something might not go quite so right for the Red Bulls, and I say that as a Red Bull fan. I'm hoping that's just Perez on Friday, but I've just got a feeling because I mean, of course, it's not luck that why they're in the situation, but you think at some point something's kind of got to give.
Yeah, it's a long like there's a lot of talk now that if they're going to win every race of the season, and I mean, it's similar to in football when you get like a team at Christmas time. Are they going to go unbeaten?
Yeah,
there's a long way to go.
There's usually something that happens.
Even in this sport in particular, like one reliability issue or like one driver crashing into you and that's your race done. And like as we see the teams go out on the formation lap, it's wet in Austria this afternoon, so that in itself can cause a lot of interesting.
This could absolutely cause carnage, especially that it's a sprint.
Yeah,
as well. This could be.
Yeah, so this
pretty mad.
Yeah, I think we've seen all the drivers get on the inters, which sort of suggests that it's a very like not a hugely wet track, and maybe it will dry. So typically you don't get a pit stop in sprint races, but there might be a situation in this where the track dries enough that someone takes a risk and think, okay, maybe I'll go into the slicks and I might get a bit of luck.
But are you taking the risk in the sprint? Are you?
I mean, if you're someone like who am I going to? I'm like Ocon is currently 8th, so he's got the last points paying spot. Maybe he thinks, oh, I might be able to do the Aston Martins ahead of me if I be bold and go on the dries. I say that they've just got to a corner that's ridiculously wet, so I don't think they'll be doing that. There's loads of spray coming off. That part of the track is very wet, so yeah. If that dries off, maybe won't do it in time, then you might see some drivers go onto the slicks. But yeah, currently they're all on. As we see, Perez has a little bit of an oversteer moment there.
All he needs to think about is staying within those track lines.
So yeah, luckily for him, it's less. I say it's less of an issue. Like it's less of an issue in qualifying. You can't in the race. Sorry, as he goes flying off the first corner. Never mind. Lindsay went straight off the first corner.
I tell you what, he needs a good weekend. And we're going to talk about what happened in qualifying in a sec. They're just coming out almost with their formation lap. Just for reference, in those first 4 spots, it's Verstappen, who's ahead of Perez. So he's P1, P2, Norris in 3rd, Nico Hulkenberg in 4th. They tend to do quite well sometimes in like qualifying.
Haas are unbelievable in qualifying.
Sprints.
Yeah, I think their big problem, and the one they're trying to work out, is like, why are we not so good in race pace? And
why can't they figure that out?
It's because they just destroy their tyres. Like that's just the way. Like Ferrari have a similar issue. Like their tyre degradation's like so bad. Look, Bottas has been told to pit already, so he's clearly had an issue of some kind. I'm guessing like. So I don't know where he's starting, but he was
honestly
quite low down
the Alphas are just. I realised when we were doing our show the other day. No offence to anyone who's watching who's an Alpha fan, but when we were doing the show, I realised we didn't even speak about Alpha once.
Yeah, I think they're in that. Like I said, I think I said it last time I was on, but they're sort of in transition phase where they're just waiting for that Audi move, but that's still a long way away. Like,
it is. It's another kind of
2.5 years.
Yeah, we're going to have to start talking about them at some point. But did anyone see the Audi car the other day, the unveiling?
No.
It looked amazing.
Oh well, yeah, but that's exciting. Like I've spoke to some of the people involved in the Audi stuff, and they're very, very keen on it. They've already got quite a head start. They're working on a lot of their engines.
I'm excited.
So yeah, I think that'd be really exciting.
I feel like this is going to be a car that comes in and starts challenging and ruffles feathers.
I mean, that's their goal. I think they've been open and said it's not going to happen in the first year or maybe the first 2 or 3. But yeah, I think a brand like Audi doesn't get involved.
Who's going to be the driver?
That's the big question. That's what only they could tell you, I guess.
Do you know what? How long is Lando's at
2025? His Norris
contract's up.
Yeah, his contract ends.
I could see him go to Audi. Okay, it's lights out. Off we go for the sprint.
Great start from Norris. Norris is flying out the teammates fighting.
Yeah,
is that Perez?
That looks like it's Perez.
I think Perez has got the lead.
Oh.
So no one's... Oh, yeah, Perez has got the lead over Verstappen. Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
That's a big move. That's a great start. Like, clearly he learned all his mistakes out of the formation lap. And
oh, my goodness me.
Oh, wow.
How long is this going to last for?
Oh, my God, there's like a 4 cars going in. Oh, wow.
2 have got off.
So, yeah, we've gone into like on the top of that hill. I've lost track of where everyone is.
Where everyone is, no idea what's going on. I mean, these two are fighting each other.
Side by side.
To be fair, this is what we've wanted to see.
Lando's just disappeared. I mean, he was third, and now I see Hulkenberg's going for a move.
There's a Haas that's hanging around there.
Oh my! Hulkenberg's going for a move. I think on Verstappen.
That's brave.
Or was that okay? Verstappen's leading. Then Hulkenberg is second. And then Perez is third.
I tell you what, that's some ballsy stuff we've just seen there.
Yeah,
Firstly from Perez to try and go toe to toe with Verstappen as teammates. We've been crying out for this all season so far. We wanted to see this in terms of the drivers, and obviously Perez has fallen away in the last couple of weeks. But this is some ballsy moves.
Has disappeared. He's down in 11th, so something terrible's happened to Norris. He's in 10th now, so he's gone from third to 10th all the way down.
Yeah, just to give you all some context, obviously you guys are watching along at home as well. Max is currently leading the race, Hulkenberg second, Perez third, Carlos Sainz fourth, Stroll fifth, Alonso sixth, Albon seventh, Ocon eighth, Leclerc ninth, Norris 10th. We've seen the 2 Mercedes move up. They are 12th and 13th. Magnussen sandwiched there in 11th. Sonoda, Gasly, De Vries, Piastri, Zhou, Sargent and Bottas at the back. He had to come and pit, didn't he? Literally
I don't know.
But
that was an unbelievable start from Perez. We were talking about how it's Verstappen's race to lose, and Perez was not having it. He went straight diving down the inside.
I reckon he got such a bollocking yesterday.
Yeah, probably. He's like,
really
I'm going to go for
it.
And here's the 2 Mercedes trying to get past Magnussen now. They've just got the speed.
They're trying.
Russell manages it, but Hamilton's still stuck. But yeah, I'd love to see that start again, because obviously Norris just disappeared like a stone, and Hulkenberg's in second somehow.
You guys in the chat, let us know what you thought about that opening lap or two.
I know.
Vinny says, big up to everybody. N11 says, the sprint is just nonsense. It creates an even bigger gap between the top and bottom teams. If you are an inferior car, what are you driving for top 8? Forget it.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, but I mean, if we get opening laps like that, I won't be against sprint in the future.
I mean, yeah, I wish that was the race.
Yeah,
I hope that happens tomorrow.
Yeah, I was saying that it looked like Verstappen had a good start, and then suddenly Perez just appeared out of nowhere, on the inside.
He's got a point to prove, definitely.
Getting their shoulders out.
Jamie said Bottas risks mediums on the formation lap and boxed for inters. There wasn't a car issue. Grimbo says, big up to Hulkenberg. Yeah, guys, send in your thoughts on those opening few laps. Who you think is going to win the sprint? And what's your thoughts on everything over the weekend so far? Let's take a look back at qualifying on Friday afternoon. There was a number of drivers. They started the session on used softs. They changed over towards the second half of Q1 though. Verstappen set a blinding first lap. He was almost 8/10 faster than Perez. We had a red flag for Bottas, who spun at turn 1. We had so many times deleted. It was absolutely crazy. We were just having a little look back at that opening lap.
Yeah, so it looked like Verstappen got away well, but then Perez just came absolutely out of nowhere. He got the better start, and then the two were fighting on the big straight.
Let's look at what happened to Norris, because Lando was there.
Norris, he's still in P3 as we go up to what is turn 3. So he's gone through turn 2, fine. Turn 3, I guess he must get forced wide.
Did he get forced? He
gets tagged. Oh, so he gets. Right. So he gets caught up in behind. I think that was Perez. And
but
just
that's serious drop off.
Yeah, because it's so early in the race, he's just gone really. Verstappen's on the radio.
He pushed me off,
man.
What the F? Yeah, I can't see that going down very well. Can you?
I mean, they asked Perez to be aggressive, and he's done that. Like you can see, it's unfortunate again.
What's wrong with Max? From Perez back.
Okay. Oh dear.
Okay. There's a little bit of handbags going on there.
That's exciting. Bit of drama.
Yeah, we like it when there's a little bit of drama between them. This is really what we want to see. But we're just looking at the reaction time there. Much quicker reaction.
So Verstappen actually got a quicker reaction, but then Perez just got up to top speed so much quicker for some reason.
Literally foot down.
Yeah.
pedal to the metal.
That's so unfortunate for McLaren again. Like, how many times have we seen Lando start really high up and then he has like an early incident and he gets shunt back down?
But do you think
again?
that incident is worthy of dropping 7 places?
I think it was just unfortunate that he got caught up in between the fight in Verstappen and Perez. He got stuck behind, I think it was Verstappen, and then the other cars just overtook him on the inside. There was not a lot he could do about that, unfortunately, for him.
He'll be devastated about that.
He's got a tough ass. But it's a great start for Hulkenberg. Like,
really good start.
Straight over to second. He's got almost a 2-second gap between him and Perez in third now. But Hulkenberg, this is a man who's gone so many races without ever getting a podium. He's got the record. Like, I know it's not a race proper, but
it'll
to
feel
see
like
Hulkenberg standing on a podium in a Haas.
Max is setting the fastest lap. Right, back to qualifying. As I mentioned, we had loads of times deleted. Gasly, he had a time reinstated actually. And Lando, he showed great pace. He moved up to P2. He was within 600ths of Verstappen. Perez then went 2,000 faster than Norris. So it was super close up there. I think that what the most frustrating thing was from a Perez and Red Bull's perspective was that he had the pace yesterday to match Max. It was just about listening and doing what you were told.
He had the pace, but he also had the warnings. Like, I think he had like 2 laps to lead. I mean, Max had laps to lead as well, but then his engineer said, stop doing that, and he stopped doing it. Like, whereas Perez, I think that's probably a reflection of where they are in the season. Like, Max is so far ahead and he's so quick, he knows he has this advantage, whereas Perez is constantly trying to get at Max.
And especially the drop-off that we've seen from Perez.
Yeah, and I think he's just a man under pressure, and I think that sort of explains why we saw this race start like this. Like, he was so aggressive. That was sort of similar to what he was like in qualifying, and like, he just went over the lines and like, he got it deleted, and it had big consequences for him.
Very big consequences. Christian Horner was very quick though yesterday to dismiss that Perez would maybe not retain that seat.
Yeah,
he was very quick to shut that down.
Yeah, I don't think that's the exact time to do like any kind of conversation like that, is it? I mean, it was just qualifying. We still got a full race, and if your boss is coming out and saying, "Yeah, he's gone," kind of thing, that doesn't work. I think in a way, Perez is doing. I mean, he's not doing great, but he's doing enough to keep him in that Red Bull seat that in Red Bull's ideal world, they want someone like a Valtteri Bottas. And I think Valtteri Bottas was really good at his job, and I think sometimes he was underrated. But for Mercedes, he was just like a driver who constantly did well. Like, I think he got to Q3 like 100 odd times in a row. Like, he just constantly did enough, but not a huge amount to challenge Hamilton. Like, that's the ideal partner for someone like Verstappen.
Well,
is like,
you did feel that, I felt personally last year that we did get that from Perez.
I mean, that's been the case with Perez in like the last 2 years. He starts really well. I mean, there's an interesting theory that he does well on the street circuits, which sort of tend to come at the start of the season, and then once we get to the European leg of races, so somewhere like Austria, which is actually a circuit, like a normal actual circuit, not on the street, then he starts to struggle a bit, and his form just slips away, really.
There is a little bit of a gap there between Hulkenberg and Perez.
So that's like a two odd second gap.
Yeah, that's a 2 odd second. I mean, they'll be looking at that in the Red Bull garage and thinking they're not particularly happy about the fact that a Haas is making a 2 second gap on a Red Bull. That's something to definitely look at and have a think about when we head into tomorrow as well. Verstappen was not happy with those track limits. He said it was absolutely ridiculous, even though it is the Red Bull ring. Probably shouldn't really say that. And of course, Perez ended up out of that. It was 4 times, and that was it after he crossed track limits. Russell was out as well. He had his time deleted also. His final lap was not fast enough as well. So who went out in that was Russell, Ocon, Piastri, Bottas, and Perez. So quite a few key drivers there. And obviously for Q3, Verstappen, of course, taking pole. That's his 4th pole in a row in 2023. Leclerc was second. It was super close at the end. It was 0.048 off of Verstappen's pole time. Norris securing P4. The upgrades are clearly showing that they're working for the McLaren. So a great weekend for him as well. And I think we had Sainz, didn't we? As Sainz is the one in between.
Sainz
so
did really well.
all in all, it was a really great day for Ferrari. So are we starting to see Ferrari, the car being better, the strategy being better?
I think it's a mix. Like, the strategy hasn't really come into it much. Like, the car's been improved. They did some upgrades. They had you're allowed a certain number of filming days during the year, so they often use that as well to sort of test out new parts. And like, they had one of those leading up to this race. And I think also the circuit tends to sort of favour them a bit more, like this one over the last few races we've had. So yeah, I think just that combined with the other circumstances, they are just starting to do a little bit better, which is which was much needed because I mean the last time we were speaking they were nowhere really.
Nowhere near it, but it's good to see them kind of starting at the top of that grid as well. What was interesting this weekend was the Astons, who we've been extremely complimentary of. They're having a brilliant season so far. But again, missing out on kind of those key top places.
Yeah, and I think that's entirely track dependent. I think the Aston Martin car is really good at low speed corners, and Austria is the exact opposite of that. All these corners are really quick mostly. So it's just the car doesn't suit them. As we look now, they're 5th and 6th. I think if you'd asked beforehand, like, would you take 5th and 6th? I think they probably would have been quite happy with that because if it is in the race proper, like that's a decent amount of points. Like, I don't think they're going to challenge. Definitely not going to challenge the Red Bulls this weekend. The Ferraris look stronger, and currently the Haas is second. So like they're looking strong as well. So I think it's just that happens sometimes in Formula One that the circuit just doesn't really suit the car.
Yeah. Stroll out-qualified Alonso yesterday.
Yeah, that's a rare. I think that was
I have to say, we weren't too nice about Stroll the other day on the preview. He definitely heard. It's okay, you can stay at Aston, don't worry. But it did seem that it was like, we've slagged him off a little bit, and he's definitely heard us.
Maybe that's the interesting thing about Stroll is like when the car's not great, he can do as good as his teammate. Like as we saw last year with Vettel, like their car wasn't great, then he did okay against Vettel. But I suppose when that car has that extra amount of performance to get there, like is he good enough then to like really get the most out of it, like someone like Alonso can do? I think that's maybe like where he is as a driver. Like yes, he might occasionally beat Alonso, but it's going to be a circuit like this where like the car's not overly great kind of thing.
Alex Albon, he finished P10. Sargent didn't get out of Q1. I would say that's a little bit harsh though, because the upgrades for the Williams, they've all gone to Albon.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense.
All the eggs are in one basket.
It's the same that's happened with McLaren as well. Like McLaren have rushed us through and given it to Norris, not Piastri, and that's just the way it's going to go. Like the experienced driver's going to get it, aren't they? Like both on a ego thing, but on also like a realistic thing. Because an experienced driver is going to be able to give more feedback than a rookie can. Like Piastri, I think he's raced this circuit quite a lot, but like Norris in particular has got a really good record at this circuit, so he'll know what he wants from the car and he can give much better feedback. But yeah, like it's unfortunate for the rookies, but that's just the way it goes.
Have you been impressed with Piastri? Because obviously the rookies this year, they haven't been the greatest, I'd say, in terms of obviously De Vries and Sargent. I mean, his hands are a little bit tied, but
I would sort of separate Piastri from those two. I think he's done much better than
looks like a normal experienced driver.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Those two have had like bad seasons, whereas Piastri's been in a car that wasn't great to start this year. And I think he is a good driver. Although I keep seeing he supports the Australian cricket team. If he keeps doing that, I'm going to change my opinion.
I have heard it's not looking good for England.
I saw it was at Lords, like hanging out with them. I was like, I thought you were a cool guy.
Yeah, clearly not. Yeah. Clearly not a cool guy.
So when it comes to driving, he's quite good. Yeah.
Okay, so we're happy with him. I want to talk about De Vries because there is talk that his time at AlphaTauri might be slightly limited. Obviously, it hasn't been great. The car, I mean, they're not the most competitive team, AlphaTauri, but we do have within that family, obviously, the Red Bulls and Danny Ricciardo, who's sitting there as a third driver. How long does De Vries have left before they make a decision?
It's a good question. I think his future's been under doubt, very early on.
Since day one,
really? I think even since Baku, I think there was first talk then that he wasn't really cutting the mustard. Like you said, the AlphaTauri car's not great. This year it's probably the worst car on the grid, but I think one thing that's bad for De Vries this year is like Tsunoda's driving amazingly. Like he's really, I was talking about Alonso and Aston Martin, like being able to drag a car to a high position. That's what Tsunoda's doing. Like currently he's running 14th when like usually he's up in near like P11. Like, I think he's only got 2 points, which I do think is quite unfair for where, and it's not really like doesn't reflect how well he's been doing. But yeah, when it comes to De Vries, like there's a rumour this weekend he's got 4 races left, so including this. So like I think that would take him to the summer break off the top of my head. So yeah, like it's looking like his time's more and more limited, unless I don't know what you can do at this point to salvage your reputation. I think when Helmut Marko's coming out and just admitting that Christian Horner didn't want you in the car, like that's like cheers Helmut, like that's a real good confidence booster.
He was the oldest, wasn't he, of the rookies?
He's 28, which to put that in context is older than Max, older than Russell, like well older than Lando, like, and very much older than
very old to have a rookie season.
Yeah, I think he was a driver that's sort of been floating on the edge, and I think it does sort of speak volumes that no one went from this. It's been this late before he got an F1 seat. Yes, he's won Formula E, he won F2 as well, but like there's probably a reason why.
We've seen other drivers do the same and come up, and it just sometimes doesn't work.
Yeah, I think it's hard. Like, it's hard to be an F1 driver, which sounds obvious, but in terms of his replacement, I think that's also an interesting thing, and I'm increasingly of the thought that if they do decide to swap him, it's not going to be for Ricciardo. I mean, my pick would be Liam Lawson, which is a Red Bull junior driver. I think we sort of forget that the purpose of the AlphaTauri car or team really is to sort of like
develop the talent,
young drivers through. So if you're putting Ricciardo in, he's 33, as we see Perez battling Hulkenberg.
He's done it. There's been a little to and fro between these two for kind of the last 2 corners or so, and it looked close. And then Sainz was there, he was sneaking up on him, but he finally got the job done.
He did.
He's got these.
Hulkenberg, like, realistically, they weren't expecting second.
No.
Like, it's where now do they end?
It was a really good defence from Hulkenberg. He tried for as long as he could.
There's a great battle as well going on between Norris and Leclerc here, like 2 really high-skilled drivers, and it's currently out the points. Like, they're fighting for 9th.
He's absolutely on his tail right there. Oh,
Norris going for a late dive.
Oh, Lando. He thought about it. Great driving there from Leclerc as well.
We're talking about sprints though, and how they're not very good, and like we overall don't like them. But if in defensive sprints, like someone like Lando, who's had that problem in that first lap, that's someone he can learn for tomorrow, because he starts at very high tomorrow as well. He can be like, right, granted the exact same situation's not going to happen again, it's unlikely, but he can know that, okay, so this is where I went wrong yesterday, and maybe I can fix that mistake and hopefully stay within points. Yeah, so like maybe that's the benefit of sprint. It's just, it's not a practice, but it is a practice in a way to get more time.
What I would say for a team like Haas, for example, obviously Sainz has overtaken has taken Hulkenberg, but let's say that he can stay 4th or 5th or something like that. Obviously, those points are quite valuable to a team like Haas.
We were talking about 8 points not
and
being
Albon in 7th.
Yeah, we were talking about 8 points not being a lot, and that's only really applies to the top teams really. Like I was saying, Tsunoda's on 2 points, so theoretically, if he wins, he's not going to win, but he'd like 4 times his points in one go kind of thing. So yeah, it's a lot for the smaller teams, and I think, like you said, someone like Hulkenberg is really hanging on. He's got a fair gap. He's got about 2.5 seconds between Stroll behind him. So the question now is, can he survive? Because we've only got 10 laps left. That's how quickly sprints go. And I think the one thing that might be playing in Hulkenberg's hand is obviously it's wet, so there's no DRS, which I think is why Perez took so long to overtake. Because we've seen the Red Bull's been very good on DRS this year. And maybe he can use that to his advantage, sort of like if there's cars behind him, they're not going to have
fighting.
They're not going to have that outright speed to overtake him.
Yeah. So. Something interesting that just came up on the radio was Stroll telling them to tell Fernando Alonso to stop fighting. Let's not waste time.
Right, okay.
Let's not waste time fighting with each other.
Good job telling Fernando that.
I was going to say, I'm sure that's really going to annoy him.
That's an interesting dynamic, because we've seen them this year. They've been very like buddy. Like
it was like the mentor and the grasshopper.
Yeah, it's like, you beat me. No, you beat me. And now it's like, oh, I don't want you to do that anymore.
Yep.
Maybe you saw the out qualifying. It's like, that's enough.
Exactly.
Oh, we got 3 cars going into the turn 10. Is this?
Yep. That looks like
it's halfway through the circuit. So
look at the spray coming off.
Ocon, Leclerc, and Norris.
And Norris.
So this is a good little battle.
Yeah, there's a few good little battles going on at the moment. Ocon is overtaken Leclerc. So it's Ocon, Leclerc and Norris as a 3. I want to talk about Alex Albon, because obviously we know his time at Red Bull, I think that probably came a little bit too soon in a way. But what he's actually doing in a Williams at the minute is pretty good. I mean, last weekend we had a P7, which is like unheard of for a Williams. There was some unbelievable defending from him as well last weekend. At the moment, we've seen a good qualifier for the sprint today, and he's currently P7 as well. So this for Williams, what a few weeks it could be.
Yeah, and I was talking about Tsunoda being a driver that elevates the team. Like Albon's that, like in spades. Like Williams would be nowhere without Albon. Like he's just been so good, both last year and into this year. Like he's really pulling them ahead. I think he's another driver who sort of deserves more points. I know, like we say, like the table doesn't lie, the grid doesn't lie, but in F1 it can be quite harsh. I think he's had a few issues and stuff like that. So. Oh, I've seen a few cars go wide there. I mean, this is a real battle between these 3 drivers, between the Alpine, Ferrari and McLaren. I think Leclerc's just got Ocon. I don't think the McLaren has... it's good driving there from Ocon. Yeah. I don't think the McLaren has got the pace. No, it's fallen back a little bit, isn't it? I think speaking of good drivers, I think Ocon's one that's really going under the radar. Like, I think when Gasly joined, a lot of people would maybe think, oh, maybe Gasly would do better, but Ocon's just routinely
He's a decent driver, really decent driver, Ocon. Do you think he could go to another team? Could you see him somewhere above?
I mean, the question is, like, where do you go kind of thing? Like, I think in his mind, Alpine are sort of a team that want to go further than they are, and we can't forget that, so Norris he's got Leclerc now, so Leclerc made a mistake into turn 10, and Norris has moved up now, so this is a great battle
between these two.
Yeah. And I saw that
neither are backing off.
I saw that Russell just said then as well, so Russell's pitted, so like I was mentioning before we started, I think he's been bold and he's gone onto soft tyres, hoping that he'll make up a lot of ground here and not slip off everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a lot of ground to make up. He's just dropped all the way down to 19th. Just to reiterate, do you have to pit?
You don't have to pit.
You don't have to.
No. So usually, like in a normal sprint race, if it's dry, you wouldn't see anyone pit really. But the fact that it's wet and it's drying, someone like George has come in for slicks, and he's going to hope that, well, A, he gets a load of speed on everyone else because the slicks are much quicker cars. As I say, that DRS has just been enabled, so that really suggests that the track's like dry now, like kind of thing. So Russell might be thinking, if I get on early, I can get in a good lap, and everyone else will have to pit. And like I might be able to move up some spots.
So if they maintain the tyres that they're on, what's the disadvantage and the advantage?
So the slicks are just much slower tyres, so like their times will be much slower because obviously they're sort of made for a bit more durance kind of thing, a bit more grippier, and sort of like be able to like, obviously if it's wet they'll do better. So the slicks are just much quicker. So if it's dry, you get a huge boost by being bold, but that's the big question: is it dry enough for me to do this?
There's still a lot of spray coming off the back. It's not looking that dry.
Yeah, and also when I say it's dry, like you naturally get a dry line where all the cars go around, so it can make overtaking quite hard because obviously you have to go off that line.
Yeah,
it might be more wet on that side of the track, and then you could have issues. But we see Piastri's come in the pit now, so he might be another one is opted to go for these dry tyres with 7 laps to go.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep an eye on what's going on there. As we were just finishing up talking about qualifying, yesterday there was a staggering 47 lap times that were deleted by race control during qualifying. I don't know if that's a record.
I don't think it is. I mean, one did a race, there was like so much more but I think that's to happen at this race. But yeah, I think it's the ones like Perez that sort of get the headlines. But yeah, like it just shows it happens all the time.
It does happen all the time. Albon finished P10. Sargent didn't get out of Q1,
I just seen that Hulkenberg's going to the pits now, so he's risking it as well.
He's risking it big time. See, I feel like Haas do this sometimes.
Yeah, they do. I mean, that's surprising for them because you would have thought they might want to like hold on to track position, but maybe they see it like the way the Formula 1 works now is
he's dropping.
So the way that Formula 1 works is like they'll all be looking at Russell's data now, seeing how Russell. That's a big slip. Sorry, you saw Hulkenberg
come out.
So Hamilton's on the slicks now. So yeah, I think we might be getting a situation where everyone dives in, like whether Verstappen and stuff like that does. I mean, Verstappen's almost got a free pit stop. He's 13 seconds ahead.
He's 13 seconds ahead, but if he doesn't need to, then what's the point?
Yeah, I mean,
realistically, the next closest car is his teammate. Is Perez going to close a gap of 13 seconds onto him?
Nah.
Could he?
I mean, if they stay on the same tyres, then Verstappen, I would have to have an off somewhere. Like, I don't think Perez is going to be able to cut away almost 14 seconds now in time.
I'm a massive fan of Checo. I really am. I love both the drivers. I really do. But when I look at the facts, now 14 seconds, when I look at what Verstappen does in a Red Bull, and I assume both cars are basically the same, is there another driver, do you think, if we saw Leclerc in that second seat, do you think he'd be better than Perez?
Yeah, I think for sure. Like, I think Perez is a good driver. I don't think he's in that like top tier. Like people like Hamilton, like Verstappen, like Leclerc, like Alonso as well. I think there's a few drivers that are quite clearly like a level above everyone else. And I think Perez is a good driver. I think he's not had the greatest season, but I think when it comes to like the really top tier, like I think Verstappen currently is in a league of his own. Like that's just the way it happens. He's in such good form. But then I think like Leclerc and like stuff like that are as talented like on their day kind of thing.
Where would you rank Verstappen then in terms of greatest drivers, or is it still too soon?
It's a difficult question, isn't it? Because he's still only won two. I say only. He's won 2 world titles compared to like someone like Hamilton who's won 7 kind of thing. But then again, that's just a longevity thing. Like Verstappen might not hang around that long. And like yes, he's impressive now, but like you could also argue that he was more impressive during the times when Mercedes was on top, because that was a time when he was really pulling the car to his absolute maximum. So yeah, I think he's a very really good driver in like all conditions kind of thing. There's no real obvious weakness, but I think these questions are always hard. It comes down to opinion, really, doesn't it, of who you like best.
Of who you like best. M23 Gaming said, I hate sprint races, completely pointless. As NR11 said earlier, it creates a bigger gap between the top teams and the bottom. There's no competition. It's no point. Just absolutely useless. I have to say, as sprints go, and I don't like them, this has actually been quite a good one. This has been quite a good one.
This has been like quite an exciting sprint race.
I'm really hopeful the race is going to be as exciting as this sprint's been.
I think this has been quite a good sprint race, to be fair to it. Like, we've had a lot of overtakes. Now we're getting this situation where like half the grid are on softs or mediums and the other half are all on intermediates kind of thing.
Pyramid Scheme says, shout out to Esteban Ocon, and Al Guapo says, how many to go? We've got four laps left.
Yeah.
Now I've seen some really interesting, actually Russell's just set the fastest lap time there. Where is he? He's moved his way up the grid nicely.
There's a graphic at the bottom. So comparing Gasly and Russell. So Gasly's on the Inter tyres and Russell's on the slicks, and he's done 4 seconds quicker. So for him, who went really early, if he keeps doing that, he's going to catch up, and he's behind Gasly already now. So you'd expect Russell to pretty easily overtake him.
Yeah, you would think that. I mean, that's some pretty good driving to come from the back. What I would say was interesting, obviously we saw Hülkenberg go and pit. He's now down to P8. Whether or not he'll make up that ground, again, I don't know. Albon as well. He was P6 at one point. It's now P11 after that pit.
Yeah, I think they've risked it, and they're hoping now that they can cut the time. I mean,
would you risk that if you're a Williams or a Haas and you're P4 and P6? Are you risking that when you need the points?
I think if I was the Haas of Hülkenberg, I wouldn't have done it because he was where was he? Fourth, yeah, he was quite high up, so that was quite a bold move.
And Albon was sick. That's a bold move for a Williams.
And I think Albon maybe would look at the fact that Russell's on the slicks and think, okay, I could be in trouble there, kind of thing. But yeah, I think the Haas decision was a bit odd. Like, he might come good, I might prove wrong. Like, he might be able to get Norris in the last 2 laps, but.
It's been a good recovery so far from Lando, as we're seeing George Russell just moving up the grid, going super fast with those new tyres. There's 3 laps to go. We've got Verstappen, Perez 17 seconds.
Yeah, almost 18 seconds ahead.
Crazy.
So flying away.
Absolutely mad. Carlos Sainz in 3rd, Stroll and Alonso make up the top 5. Ocon, Norris, Hülkenberg, Russell with the lap time, and Gasly make up the top 10. Alex Albon is just hanging there. He's actually just dropped down. He's just been overtaken by Hamilton. I think that was a bad decision. From Williams.
I agree on the Williams front, and possibly the Haas as well. Like, it's a bold move, but if the other teams don't pit, then you're in a bit of trouble.
I've seen them do it during races though as well, which I've been surprised about. It's like they get themselves into these good positions from qualifying, and they kind of maintain a decent, top 10, and then they leave the pitting till so late sometimes that they leave it with like 10 laps to go, and then there's no way that you can then get through the pack and get back to where you were with the car you have. Why? Sometimes I sit there and I'm like, why?
Yeah, you'd have to ask Gunter and his team what they're thinking behind that.
I would love to know that, because I've seen them do that in a good 2 races. I think there was, I don't know which race it was where we were, but there was a race where it might have even been Miami potentially, and Hülkenberg was like, I think he was like 6th or 7th at one point, and then they chose to pit, and I was like, why have you done that? Do your pits earlier.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you have to ask their strategy team. This one in particular is a bit odd. Like, saying that though, he's really cutting down the time on Norris. Whether he can cut 5 seconds in 1.5 laps, I mean, he is in the points. Like, that's still a good result. I mean,
that was tight.
Norris and Albon hitting each other there.
Piastri.
Oh, sorry, it's Piastri and Albon. I'm getting the colours wrong.
Oh, come on, Alex. I feel for the Williams. I feel for them. They were P6.
I mean, I'm sure they've got their reasons, but I'd love to hear, especially the Haas side of the garage. Like, they just clearly didn't think they could hold on to where they were, which is surprising. I
just can't stop looking at that gap between Verstappen and Perez. Every
time you look, it's almost like a second longer. Like, it's almost 20 seconds.
It's basically hitting 20 seconds. Yeah. I mean, how is that possible that you're in the same car, you're in the same tyres? How are you 20 seconds behind?
I don't know, no idea. I mean, this is the sad thing about sprints. Like, this is sort of gearing up to like a really exciting race, and we've got 1.5 laps left. Like,
oh yeah,
this has been really fun to see, like, how these cars on the dry tyres catch up with the ones in the Inters. But we will never know. We'll have to wait till tomorrow. Oh, that's a big lockup from Leclerc. He managed to hold on to it though, ahead of Albon.
Just managed to keep on his tails. Piastri's just set the fastest lap time.
Oh, Hockenberg's just overtaken Norris, so he's managed to do it. He's up into 7th. So yeah, that's points still. That's 2 points.
That's 2 points.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a difference from where he was in P4.
He might be able to get Ocon going to the last bit.
Can he get him? That'd be absolutely huge if they can get more.
I don't know where they're on track. I think they're halfway through the circuit, so they're just coming round. Oh, he's with
He's
him.
right on his tail. Can he do it? Is he going to do it?
What lap?
Oh, he's done it. Good for him.
I'm confused what lap. I swear he just went across the start line, but he seems to have...
No, he's done it.
What a great drive that is. I mean, I still sort of question their strategy, but...
I'm questioning more the Williams than I am the Haas. I mean, I'm still questioning it because they were fourth, and that's obviously a difference of a few points, but I'm really questioning what the Williams were thinking.
Going on a dive for his own teammate.
Here we go. Nice.
Ooh.
Oh,
so Stroll holds on. Oh, Alonso's got in here, surely.
These two have been trying to not
Max
fight.
Cross the line. So, yeah.
Has anyone seen Max cross the line? There he goes.
He just crossed it. But yeah, this is what you want.
Sometimes Max must just look around and be like, where is everyone?
I've just finished it.
21 seconds behind Perez is going to finish.
Oh, this is a big battle here.
And these two were not meant to be fighting. They were not meant to be fighting. It must kill him.
It's going to be like right to the end of the line.
To be fair, when you are like Alonso, it must really annoy you.
Yeah, wait. Here we go. I think Stroll's just going to hold on. Stroll might just hold on.
It's rare. Yeah, he's going to hold on. There'll be some talk about that. I look forward to what everyone's going to say after.
Oh, that was close. I lost track of that. I think that was Russell on Ocon. I think. Oh wow, Russell finished 0.009 behind Ocon, so that's ridiculously close. Yeah,
that was good, and that was a really good. That pit was a decent idea.
Yeah, so yeah, it clearly showed that Russell, who pitted first, like that was a good idea to go as early as you can, like as soon as it's dry enough, because that really paid.
As soon as it's dry, it really paid off for him to get in it. But I think the biggest takeaway from today is really Williams and their strategy, and it's extremely questionable because we've gone from having a P6 for Albon to a P13, no points.
Also, we didn't mention Sainz once, and he's on the podium.
We didn't. We haven't mentioned Carlos Sainz.
It's quite a race, but he seems to have done brilliantly.
So far, he's having a blinding weekend.
Yeah, I don't think we saw him much other than the start, and that was just sort of it, really.
P3 today, P3 tomorrow.
Maybe.
Well, currently starting in. Leclerc, though, disappointed?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what happened really there, kind of thing. Yeah, I guess he just didn't have the pace for whatever reason. Here he is. I mean, he was in a battle with Norris for ages, wasn't he? Like, those two were fighting. I think Norris eventually got ahead of him, and a bit of touch there.
He's been in a fight all day, to be fair, with the McLarens.
It was him and Albon, like, sort of in a battle all the way, and Ocon at times as well. So yeah, I just wish that was a bit longer. I could have done with another half an hour of that. Well,
I tell you what we do have. We have a whole race tomorrow. We have a whole race tomorrow. So we're hoping that it's going to be as exciting as that was. And I look forward to kind of hearing what's going to be coming out of the paddocks in this post-race kind of interviews. Because you forget, at the start, we had Perez and Verstappen head-to-head.
I mean, that's just,
little fight.
If we're talking about Perez, that's just another huge dent on his confidence. Like, he was battling Verstappen, and he's finished 20 odd seconds behind him.
He's finishing 20 seconds behind.
The same car, like on the same tyres. Like, there's no justification. Like, Perez wasn't in an accident. Like, Perez didn't have any issues. Like, he should have finished.
Just pure driving.
Yeah, he finished 20 seconds behind Max. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, Verstappen just breezed past him and kept going.
Yeah. Absolutely, and of course we've got the little battle going on between the two Astons. Again, they're next to each other, aren't they, for tomorrow as well?
There's going to be a lot of fun team debriefs tonight.
Yeah, there's going to be
boardrooms, like a bit of frosty atmosphere in the Aston one.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward. It sets us up nicely, actually, for the race tomorrow.
I mean, we slagged off sprint races, but I think that was a fairly interesting one as it goes. I mean, like I said, I wish it was a bit longer, but that's a sprint race for you.
It was pretty good. Let's see what you guys are saying. Did you enjoy that sprint race first and foremost? Jamie Todd said, I know it's been wet, but 20 seconds in 24 laps, is that a statement for tomorrow?
Yeah, that's what we just mentioned, like the fact that he's able to do that so easily, like that's got to be in such little time as well. Like,
well, the thing is, he's got a lot to prove.
Yes, he's got if that was a time over a full race, it's a bit more understandable. It's still not great, but like, the fact he's done it over 100 kilometres or 24 laps, like, it's just ridiculous. Like, the speed on him is unbelievable.
Yep, we've got smoke coming out of the Red Bull car.
Just hot brakes at the moment.
Yeah, these two are having a debrief. I'm sure we'll hear more about what they're saying.
Max, how did you manage to get 20 seconds as fast
how
as you
get 20? Yeah, how are you doing this? He's just an absolute animal, isn't he? Let's see what else you guys are saying. Pyramid says Leclerc is done. He's a confidence driver. I think that it's just been a poor day for Leclerc, but obviously he's sitting P2
also,
for tomorrow.
We talk about Leclerc, if you say Leclerc's a confidence driver, he's had like a year and a half to like mentally test him. Like the Ferrari is like put him through absolutely everything.
It's a draining car.
His own team like shot him in the foot today by making him drop 3 spots. So like, no wonder his confidence is absolutely fried. Like I'd be exhausted.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be like in a ball of tears every
but
race.
What's been nice is because of how much Carlos Sainz has kind of had criticism thrown at him in every single direction in the last couple of races or so. It's nice to see him get P3.
Yeah. Like
start
I said,
P3 tomorrow.
It was a completely I don't think we mentioned him once really. Like it was just a
good drive.
Yeah.
Smooth drive. And no pressure on there. So the car does look better. Just to wrap it up for you guys, the people that are in the points is Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz, Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso, Nico Hulkenberg, and Esteban Ocon. And did we have Russell as 8th?
I think he snuck in there. No?
Snuck in there. I've only got up to 7 on my screen, but I think
it was Russell.
I'm pretty sure it was George Russell as well. So, guys, we hope you enjoyed that sprint. It was very entertaining for us too.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sam.
You're welcome.
We'll be seeing you next week ahead of Silverstone.
No, I'm at Silverstone, so you might have a on-screen, on-track. Something a VT.
Yeah, a VT at Silverstone. But for everyone else, please join us tomorrow. I'll be in here with Matisse and Joe. Don't forget, we still have a PS5 up for grabs. It's not here right now, but it's still up for grabs. Make sure you go and like us on Instagram. Make sure you hit that follow button, and make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube as well, so you can be in with a chance of winning. We are closing that competition very, very soon, so make sure you go and do that. A few last comments. Harry says, well, that was a race. I think Lewis had a nice drive. I hope Abby and Sam are well, and thanks for the stream, guys. Thank you very much, and thank you for all of you for watching, and we will see you tomorrow for the real thing. Spielberg, Austria, Red Bull Ring. Max is going to bring it home, obviously. See you tomorrow, guys.